Hi everyone, this is Bruna and thank you so much for clicking. In this video, we're going to talk about email etiquette in the workplace and how it can help you build trust and positive customer relationships. When we compare communication by writing and communication by speaking, we know that written communication has a greater chance of being misinterpreted. This is because differently than in oral communication, when you're writing, you don't have the intonation, you don't have the pauses, you don't have emphasis on certain words. This has the potential to create misunderstandings, but misunderstandings that sometimes could be easily avoided. In addition, whenever we send an email or send something in writing, we're documenting this information. So it's important to be careful and to follow some etiquette rules to make sure that you're on the same page as your client, as your coworker, or whoever it is that you're communicating with. In this video, we're going to go over 5 action points that will decrease miscommunications, increase empathy, and build trust with your clients. So let's get right into it. The first email etiquette rule is a really simple one. When writing emails, try to use standard fonts in regular sizing in black color. The tip here is to not go exploring on a different cool font that you found, or changing the color or changing the size. All of this can be perceived as not very professional by the other person. And in addition to that, it is a distraction. If you're sending an email, you probably have a message that you want to communicate. You probably have a point you want to make. So it's not in your best interest to have a distraction. You want the reader to be focused on your message and in your message only. For example, if you're sending a business proposal via email, you want the person that's receiving that to focus on what you have to propose. You don't want their thoughts to be instead,
"Why do you think he chose this font? Why do you think this part is green and this part is blue? Ooh, I'm so distracted by all of this."
For this reason, that tip number 1 is just to keep it simple. Use the standard font, standard sizing, black color. Tip number 2 is to avoid capitalizing letters or capitalizing whole words or sentences. Now, this rule can have certain exceptions. If you're working with very informal email marketing, then having some words or some sentences that are capitalized can work great to draw attention to that part of the email. We know that the attention span of people is very small, so it might make sense to capitalize something to draw attention to that. However, in more formal business settings, this strategy might be perceived as unprofessional. Let's look at some examples and let's see if you agree with me. What do you think of this message? How does it make you feel? Now, what difference does it make to your perception if we change it to this instead? And how about this third way of writing the same sentence? When you see the phrase in all capital letters, doesn't it seem that this person is mad, angry, yelling at you? This is not an attitude that we want to nurture in business emails. So if you don't want to be perceived that way, try to avoid that. If you still feel the need to emphasize something in your email, you can instead underline it, make it bold, or change the spacing in between your paragraphs so that that specific part is in focus. I would also like to point out that if an email is urgent, the body of the email or the subject line should be able to flag that without having to use capital letters. In this case, it doesn't matter which one of the 3 ways you used, the deadline was being formed right there. So if I know the deadline, I know the sense of urgency. If I want to make sure the person that's reading this email does not miss the deadline, I can, for example, bring this phrase with the deadline to the beginning of the email, which is the first thing the person will read. So you make sure that they won't miss it because it's right there in the beginning. The third tip is when you receive an email, answer right away. Many times we will receive an email and we feel like we need to do something before answering it. We might need to complete a task, we might need to check information with someone else, we might need to check the status of something. Because of that, your initial intent might be to wait to respond so that when you do respond, you have all the information you need. However, the suggestion here is to answer the email as soon as you see it, confirming you have seen it, confirming you're working on it, and you'll get back to them as soon as whatever it is that needs to happen happens. This way, the person on the other side can feel comfortable that they know that you got the email, they know that you're on it. No one likes to be in the dark about what's going on the other side. I have sent many emails to coworkers asking for some kind of information, and then after 5 days, after a week, 8 days, 9 days go by and I haven't heard back. I have no idea if they forgot about this, if they're working on it, if they're dealing with some kind of barrier that may take a long time. I have no idea what to expect. So I feel the need to follow up on the same email and ask them, what's the status of this? And then I might get a response saying, yes, I'm working on this is what's happening. But it would have been so much easier to have that confirmation in the first place. And then I'm confident that this is being taken care of. For this reason, I always recommend that you respond to emails right away. It really shows a consideration on your part. It shows that you care about your client or your coworker, and it shows that they can count on you, that they can trust you. Remember, you don't necessarily need to have it all figured out to answer an email. You could say, for example, thank you for your email. I have forwarded it to our IT department and will get back to you as soon as I hear from them. Let me know if there's anything else I can help you with. It's all good. No one is going to be mad with that answer, that I guarantee you. Instead, they're going to be happy that you replied so quickly and they're on the loop of what's going on. And then if it takes longer than expected to solve something on your end, the same rule applies to follow-ups. The person that you're talking to will certainly appreciate a follow-up after 2, 3, or 4 days to let them know that you haven't forgotten about them, that you're still working on it. This is such a professional move, and it shows your client that you care about them, that you're actively working on it, and that you're going to keep them updated in the meantime. Like I mentioned before, in written communication, there are some elements of speech that are lost, so there's a greater chance of misunderstandings. So it's never a bad idea to clarify what the other person is saying. You can, for example, rephrase what the other person just said and then ask for confirmation if this is really what they meant. This can cause some back and forth, and sometimes just picking up the phone and calling them to ask for confirmation might be much quicker. But even if calling is not an option, it's still a better idea to clarify what the other person said than to go ahead with something that might not even be what they're asking for. And the fifth and final tip is to always ask for permission before forwarding someone else's email. Sometimes we might think that for a certain email it is obvious that I can forward it to someone else. But never do that without asking if it's okay first. Think about it this way. Let's say you have a very close relationship with your boss and you wrote her an email about something that you believe should be improved. And then she forwards it to her boss. But if you knew that that email would go higher up, you would have written it differently. You're not that close to your boss's boss. You would have maybe structured your email in a different way, maybe made sure that your points were very clear and very respectful, and that you're proposing how to improve and an action plan. So you probably wouldn't like to know that your email was forwarded to your boss's boss without your approval, without you knowing about it. A good tip to avoid this from happening with you is to always write your email in a way that you would still be proud of it, even if it reaches someone else. But you definitely don't want to be doing this to someone else and causing someone else any kind of uncomfort. Ask this person, is it okay if I forward this email to this other person? I think it would be very helpful. I really like the way you worded this. Is it okay if I do that? So here's a summary of the tips that we covered in this video about professional communications. Can you think of anything else that you're doing that also makes your email more professional, creates empathy, creates trust? If yes, then please write it down in the comments below so that we can continue sharing information. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. It really helps you to bring it to a wider audience. And if you're interested in improving your emails even further, check out the description of the video below and I'll link some resources that I have. Thank you so much, and until next time.